Okay, great. Happy Monday, everybody.
Happy Monday.
So let's start our April chairs report. If we can just check in for committee chairs and miscellaneous and other boards and committees, commissions, and miscellaneous. So we will start with finance.
So finance, President Scott, I usually start off with bad news, but I think it's good news. I'm sure everyone saw a couple of pieces. First off, in terms of legislation, not anything major in legislation. I think everyone saw that during agenda review. I think there's one appointment that we have to the Civil Service Commission. Those are the main highlights of finance. There's not really much. There's a couple of legal resolutions, but not a whole lot to talk about there. I will say, I'm sure everyone heard, and if I haven't forwarded the analysis, I will over. But the city's bond rating did rise.
I saw that.
We're not where we want to be, but we're not. Thank God, we're not where we were. And a lot of that driver was the school district and them improving their financial conditions as it related specifically to them able to, kind of getting that influx of cash from the federal government, as well as they're having a little bit of a fund balance now. So that helped, and that helps all of us and city taxpayers, because when we go out to borrow, the numbers will be a little bit better with a higher bond rating. So that was good news. And then the other good news, which everyone also saw, was everyone knows the feds did finally pass a CARES Act package that will provide aid to state and local governments. I'll check in with Chris tomorrow to see what that may mean for us, but hopefully that will also provide a little bit of relief. So that means that both us and the county and school district will be getting a couple of items. So that's what's going on the finance side. So that's good news for once, not anything crazy. The 3-on-3, just to touch on that, we got another one of those coming up soon. And one of the things that we've been talking about at the 3-3-3, and VP Lightfoot or Councilmember Gruber can add anything if I miss out on this, is that we have talked about how we could present to the community how we've been how each entity has been spending the CARES Act money as an educational type thing, because a lot of people may not realize that, this CARES Act money, all the entities have been doing some good things, like the city with the rent relief and with the computers that went to the students, the food program, like all that stuff. So that way, if someone asks, hey, what happened to all this CARES Act money, we can have a chart that would show that. And we actually have we actually got a report recently that talks about how all the CARES Act money was spent. And the county could do the same thing, the city could do the same thing, and we can put it all in one document to say, hey, this is how the CARES Act money that was spent in the community was done. So that's kind of a project that we agreed we would kind of work on, just as an education piece, positive education piece, because we hear so much bad news, but something positive that we could do together with each entity. So that's what I have on the finance front. The only thing I'll mention too, because I have to get off about 1:10, is the convention center. Everything is still the same, but I will say, thanks to Food and the county, that's been kind of keeping the convention center at least with a little bit of activity, with the COVID shots that are going on. Tons of activity there from the convention center, and then Food has Mitch can correct me if I'm wrong, but thousands and thousands of food stored there. So that's good, because you can't have these large scale activities. So it's good that the community has recognized that the convention center is a great spot. So Food as well as the county has used that as a spot to still have some type of activity. So I'm thankful for that, because it's better than nothing. So, and they're both two good community things. So
food storage, is that what you said?
Yeah. So yeah.
So you guys are out of space, Mitch? You guys got that much stuff?
Yeah, we were for a while we were packed. It's also really important for us to make sure that we have separate spaces, so that if there is any type of COVID outbreak in one place, that there's food multiple places. So the convention center has been just phenomenal from the start.
Great.
Can I ask a question, Malik?
Sure.
So it's obviously a huge amount of money coming in to all these different public entities. Last we had talked about in the 333, there was still going to be some guidance on what are eligible expenses or not. I see, there's a lot of opportunities for the city. Of course, there's a lot of challenges too to spend money on these one shots that aren't necessarily going to come back. Do you have a sense of what the process is in terms of how the administration is making those decisions and how it's going to be woven into the budget that we're going to see in about a month?
You must be reading my mind. That's my question for my monthly finance. So I haven't had that yet, but that's my exact question, which you just asked. And also the time frame in which we have to spend the money. That I think that's also extremely important. I think I provided an answer from the last chairs meeting on the first round that, we had an extra year or whatever it was to expend all the funds. But I think, Mitch, that question is the one I have, as well as the time frame. Like, hey, does it have to be done by 2022, or can it go into part of 2023? Because I think that will help with planning with the budget and any other things that we want to do. I will tell you that being that I was on the school board for so long and I'm shell shocked, what I'm nervous about is committing to something that once the money runs out, that we won't be able to sustain it. So how do you, so that's what that's my one big worry. Like, let's say we come up with this great program and we all love it, but then it's dependent upon money from the CARES Act or, and then it goes away. That I think we have to keep those kind of considerations in mind too. But yeah, so I'll get more guidance on that. And then once I do, I'll make sure I share it with council after on Wednesday or Thursday.
Mike, is this the 206 million that you're referencing? There's another package.
I'm sorry, Mary, your microphone. You gotta get a new microphone, Mary. I'm getting you one for Christmas. I couldn't hear you.
I'm working on it. Can you hear me now?
Now I hear you.
Yes.
I said, is this the same 206 million that we were alerted about a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I believe it is. Yeah, that's the funds that I don't think the actual number has been clarified, but I think it's in that ballpark. Again, I want to get clarity before I say the number, because I don't know if that's right, but that was the projection.
They did release the number. So that's why I'm wondering if this is the same pot of money or different.
No, it's the same. No, it would be the same pot, but yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed. I don't believe it until we get it in the bank, but yeah.
Right. I'm definitely interested to know how we're going to be able to spend it. And to your comment about, starting programs, not being able to finish it. I hope that, maybe we can do some pilot programs and prove some, maybe that we wouldn't have taken the risk on before to show how effective they can be.
Yeah, proof of concept stuff is always good.
Yeah. I also just wanted to give a shout out to the convention center. I got my vaccine there, and it's like a well-oiled machine. You cannot.
They don't mess around.
Funnel you like cattle to where you need to go.
Yeah, no, they got it.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Patterson.
Hey folks, how y'all doing?
All right.
Okay. Nothing big, nothing heavy this week other than the CARES Act money that came through. Everything else is pretty much standard for the course. Your sale of real estate, the High Falls Business Improvement District, which is a yearly thing that we do, appointments to the Preservation Board. We've got the open space districts, the AIO that we're doing. Again, there's money for the rent assistance funding coming through. I'm sure everybody's got a lot of questions on that one. Alexander Street and entertainment districts improvements, which is always a grumble for me, but never mind. And the Urban Land Institute funding. So nothing big, nothing crazy, nothing unusual.
Okay. Thank you. Council Member Grover.
Sure. A lot of annual stuff this month in terms of the different special assessment districts, some regular annual milling and paving, or resurfacing, some real good stuff going on in that regard. Huge investments in bicycling infrastructure. We're wrapping up the Bicycle Boulevard project with a bonding package here that's been work that the administration's been going through for years and years now, and it's good to see it move forward. Same with Waring Road. One cool thing is some of the folks from Art Walk over in the neighborhood of the Arts have transferred some of their dollars, or has been working with Avenue Black Box Theater and are working with Rena to be able to do some public art over on the Joseph Avenue corridor. So that's a really exciting partnership that the city and DES are paying really close attention to and trying to be as helpful as we can. But other than that, I don't see anything that isn't more or less annual or self-explanatory, but happy to answer any questions.
I'm wondering if with the latest federal package, and we don't, since we haven't clarified the process that will be used to determine what the money will be spent on, I'm just putting this out here and somebody can carry it back or something. You know, the issue we've had with the water lines, the ones to the house, and the city only covers it from the street to the tree lawn or something like that. And that part that goes from the tree lawn into the house, the tenant is responsible for. And there are thousands of houses where those lines are bad. I'm wondering if we would be able to consider those kinds of replacements, or if that would be a thought that is in there for when they do the infrastructure stuff, those kinds of construction projects. Councilmember Patterson.
Council President, are you talking about the lead line replacement, or are you talking about the thing that that insurance group is always pitching out to it?
Well, the insurance is the one that will cover the house. I mean, not the house, those lines. So yeah.
So, because
Yeah.
I think that the lead, and I leave it to the chair, obviously, but I think we're comprehensively replacing the lead lines as we go, as they're doing water work. So they're replacing those, and I think we just did a bunch of those, didn't we, Mitch?
Right, we did, but are we doing the ones to the home, the one from the street to the curb or something like that? That's the city's, that's our responsibility. But the one where you get that thing right in your yard, because I've had to do it, and it goes from there into your house.
That's a great question for the commissioner. Of course, the other thing is we could always look at making it an option for residents to buy into that insurance that we've been pitched a couple of times over the last couple of years, so that when there is a problem, you don't have to reach out of pocket. It's just paid for. I know we've always been reluctant to do it because it seems like a good idea, but we've always been reluctant to do it.
Right,
So,
right.
so there's
Yeah.
And the
It was
one,
$1,500 when I did it, like 15 years ago, $1,500 then. So I don't know what it is now.
$500 now because my line broke, and it ended up not being my line, which I'm happy about. It was just like something at the option, but it was $2,500, and I don't know how people can cover that out of pocket.
and President Scott, one thing I would just highlight is I think we do have obviously some real work to do to figure out how we're going to use some of the relief package dollars. But I'll also say the infrastructure plan that the Biden administration has put out has specifically highlighted lead pipes as something that they want to invest in. I mean, there's not a lot of things that they offered a lot of specificity on, and that was one thing that was very, very, very specific. So I also think that then it's a little bit of a balancing act of which funds do you want to use. But I do think regardless, it would make sense for the administration to be a little bit more aggressive on some of that work you're talking about.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
In terms
Yes.
of the relief money, I wonder, because correct me if I'm wrong, the way that it usually works is kind of administration comes up with a plan and then we vote on it. But, I think that there's probably a lot of things that we individually would like to see. And I wonder if there's a way that we can kind of like provide that to administration as they're thinking about this, is kind of like what we would like to see.
Certainly. We just, and what we just are waiting to find out is what is eligible and what their process is going to be, their timeline. So we'll know where we get in. That doesn't have to be at the end. I mean, it's not,
That makes sense.
you don't know it till it's presented to you. We can get to put stuff in there. Okay. Council member Lightfoot, right? VP Lightfoot.
Peace and blessings, family. How are you? Is everybody doing well? I hope everyone's doing well. Can you
Yeah.
hear me?
We're fine, thank
Wonderful.
you. Good afternoon.
All right, wonderful. So I haven't had my conversations yet with department heads, but I do see this telephone notification piece. I think it's something that people may have questions on with the ECD that they're using for basically notifying people of emergency services agency quickly providing warnings. I think that may be something that people may have some questions on. There was an RFP sent out for that. And then I would say probably the piece on the, give me 1 second, I'm trying to pull it up on my phone. I like the Attain Lab Center. I think that's a great thing that's going on over at
Jackson.
Rocky Sinclair. Yeah, and I think that's going to be pretty cool. The great opportunity for the residents.
You said
The
Sinclair?
no, it's I'm sorry,
It's Jackson.
at, Jackson.
Yeah, okay.
Isn't that
Huh?
Pamela and Trenton Jackson Center? Yeah, I don't know why I had it as I thought it was the Sinclair for some reason, but that's the other one. And then we have the Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights piece that I'm sure maybe folks may have questions on. But other than that, I really don't, there's not much in my packet this particular month. I'll be would like to hear any questions. I'll be willing to take to department heads if anyone has any. And that's pretty much all I have to report. I do want to make a comment backing up a little bit about the lead, about the pipes. You know, I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago, I was really harping real heavy on where we are. We had a work session on that, and I was hoping that we would be able to continue having conversations around that, because I think, Madam President, you're absolutely right. The portion from the middle of the street and or to the sidewalk or to the curb is what they're replacing when they're doing work, from my understanding. And they're replacing, quote unquote, what the commissioner calls the nipples, which are the things that have the lead in them, those that have not been replaced. There has been no conversation about from the curb to the house, which is what I had to replace mine in my home years ago when I first bought my home. But I would hope that we would be able to have some more extensive conversation about the usage of the dollars that we're potentially getting, especially around what Councilmember Gruber was talking about. And the reason I bet you that they specifically speak to those pipes is because there is a lot of poisoning going on, and people don't want to acknowledge that. But there is no safe level of lead. Period. There is no safe level. So when people say there's only 0.01 parts of lead, it doesn't matter. If there's any lead, it's unsafe, and there's a lot of unintended consequences that come as a result of lead, and so being in the water. So, and I would just hope that we would really have some more conversations around that, because of course we didn't have the dollars to be able to aggressively address the old pipes that we have in this city. But if we can add additional opportunities to that, to resources to be able to more aggressively deal with that, and look at the neighborhoods that we're actually addressing them in too. Making sure that there's no disproportion of where we're addressing the problem at. I think it's something that a conversation that I would love to be able to have in the future.
Did we get the slides or anything from the Outdoor Bill of Rights, the Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights piece?
Yes, we did.
We had the workshop. Did anybody not get that information? And if they didn't, we can get it to you.
The slides and the notes are on the G Drive as well.
Okay, great. So the VP Lightfoot, the cats, what do we,
Jeez, got the
is
cat.
there any more clarity on the issue with the cats, community cats?
Yes, we had a workshop on that with Chris Fitzgerald, the director. And basically what I got out of it, and Councilmember Gruber can step in and give his perspective, was that to me, there was a real need for a better communication effort going on how they attend and educate the community around what's best for these cats. And so what some people are saying is best and what the director is saying seems to be
At odds.
they're at odds with what they believe is what's best. And so the information he provided us, of course, kind of, backed up his position on it. And so I asked him, would he, how can we do a better job of educating our citizens on how to best care? Now, from our understanding, and Councilman Gruber, you correct me if I'm wrong, they're not going to turn away any animals. They're going to provide the necessary adoption and or assistance as they have been in the past. Did I understand that correctly, Councilmember Gruber?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm putting something in the chat, Mike. I know you don't like that, but I'm also going to say it transparently what I'm putting in there. It's a link, humananimalsupportservices.org. That basically this is a new-ish philosophy on how to deal with a shelter. And Chris is kind of leading us into kind of a new frontier. And a lot of the explanation on this website that he provided on our work session, which of course anyone can watch, I think makes a lot of sense. I think the issue has been the way it's been communicated to the public. And I think, Will, I'm not trying to jump over you here, but I do think that's the biggest takeaway for us is we need to figure out how to make sure this is communicated in clearer ways to folks.
Yeah, please. I think, any tools that I can be given would be grateful. I've never talked so much about cats in all my life. I mean,
It's a serious topic.
Yeah, my aide has spent a lot of hours. So would that website have info, Mitch, on like resources that we could give to the larger community as well as it relates to cats?
It does, and I think
Okay.
that we can also definitely make sure. I mean, a question that I asked Chris at the work session the other day was, does he feel like the volunteers of Verona Street, who are predominantly the folks who are engaging with the public on this, does he feel that they really, have a clear understanding of what the changes are and why? And Chris acknowledged that there's still work to do in that regard. So I think we need to make sure that we have that everyone who's working on this is an ambassador of it. I'd also just make a quick plug. I think one of the reasons for this is probably because Verona Street itself is a very, very, it's an older building that does not have a lot of capacity opportunities. And maybe if we're looking for capital projects as part of this new influx of dollars coming in too, there would be some less issues if in fact we could make some more space for more animals.
I absolutely, totally concur with that. And that's been something that we've discussed and talked about before. And we've been advocating for Chris and his staff, and they've done a lot with a little bit. And they could really use a capital improvement project over there for sure. So I definitely would be on board with advocating for that.
Councilmember Gruber, could you share that website on your screen so that if there's anybody watching, they'll be able to actually look at it and possibly write it down and chase it down, or can somebody else?
I can link it in the YouTube chat.
Okay. Yeah, that would be-
Councilmember Patterson, I'm not sure if I'm proud or embarrassed to say that in a year plus of doing Zooms, I have yet to share my screen once.
Don't feel bad. I'm not throwing shade. I'm just
Don't know how to do it.
Hey, I don't either. That's why my cleanup was if the staff could do it. Because I mean, and I guess that kind of leads me to something. I don't know if we're done yet, but we need something better than Zoom. If we're going to be sharing items and putting things in chat, it needs to be visible. It needs to be accessible for the public. I don't know if there's a way to do that in Zoom, but we need to do that because there is still this perception that we're doing a whole lot of business in the corner when we're having these meetings, and we're not. But, you know, there's got to be something out there. There's got to be a better way to actually have the chat and have the people see what we're saying and have that stuff going.
Well, there is, Mike. I mean, ultimately, that's what the share function of sharing your screen, I think, ultimately is for, right? And so, you know, originally we were looking at Teams, which was also, but that was very not as user friendly, in my opinion, as Zoom was. So I think most of them, even Ring Central and some of the other ones I've seen, they all have the same similar functions as share screen and or chat functions. So I think they all pretty much operate the same. I think it's just a matter of us maybe just doing our due diligence. If we're sharing something, that we're gonna have to maybe get a little training on sharing our screens and that type of thing. So we're able to, if we do put something out there, that we can show it.
I'm not selling anything, you know, I'm just saying, I mean, if we can find something in the course of doing everything, well, I know we have the hardest working staff in the world, but you know, if there's something else out there that works better for the public, that knocks down this perception that there's even a possibility that we're doing something that's not out in the open, I just think that's something we need to start thinking about moving towards.
Okay, all right.
And,
Thank you.
I'm not pushing back. I'm not pushing.
Yeah,
Madam
yeah.
President, hold on 1 second. I'm not pushing back. I just want to be clear that the city of Rochester is one of the most transparent by the open meetings public authorities. During the pandemic, we actually have exceeded many of our other municipality partners. So I just want, for the record, I just want that stated, understood, for those who believe we're doing things in the dark, or we could actually have relaxed our meetings even the more if we so chose to, but we chose to actually be more transparent in our city government. And so I just for the sake of people who may be critics of that, just understand that that is, we were actually given a rating by the open meeting public authorities, if I'm not mistaken. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's what was stated.
Okay, well, thank you, and we'll be mindful of that for sure. We covered on the reports from boards and commissions, which is where we are on our agenda. So we covered 333 and Convention Center. So the next one on our list is Action for a Better Community. Councilmember Gruber.
Sure. I guess the biggest update to share there is that you know, Head Start continues to follow our CSD in terms of decision making about bringing kids back or not. And I think, you know, we've heard from our CSD, and probably is true across the board, is that we're seeing some enrollment declines for the youngest kids in our community right now across the board. And hopefully that's something that all of us can work together and double down to help change, especially as hopefully next school year returns to normal somewhat. We can get more and more of the message out to make sure to enroll kids in all the different opportunities that are out there. So that's the biggest update from there. Do you want me to just go down my list, President Scott, or do you want to
Sure.
call? Libraries continue to scale up their hours and are really working hard to make sure that they're there as a resource for the community. You can check the hours on, you know, the library website, but they're definitely scaling up and on the upward trajectory in terms of how their buildings can get utilized. And the last one that I would just say is Peace Village, the sanctioned encampment downtown for those who are experiencing homelessness. We're working on a couple of different grant opportunities right now, but CARES money has been used to make sure that there's steady outreach there. And there's been some pretty good successes in the last year or so of transitioning people from Peace Village into more permanent housing. So we'll continue to do that work. The census continues to change and fluctuate quite a bit, but there's a really engaged group of folks working on the initiative, and hopefully we'll be able to receive a grant sometime soon to be able to even put some shelters there for the first time, some semi-permanent shelters that we've gotten permission from the fire marshal to put up there to see how that impacts the space there.
It'll still be transitional though, right? I mean,
Correct.
the intent is for the residents to move into permanent shelter.
Correct. I don't think anybody who we've spoken to, either residents or the homeless services providers, expects that to be any different, no matter what infrastructure is put there. But putting some
Okay.
shelters there will allow for probably some more safety and also more warmth in the winter months.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Harris is not with us. Councilmembers Lightfoot and Gruber, are there any additional reports for Ray's?
I don't, none that I know of, except that I know right now the co-chairs are actively working on trying to create a bit of an implementation plan that I'm sure will be communicated to everyone. But I don't know, Willie, if you had a better update there.
Madam President, I thank you, Councilman Gruber. I submitted a letter that I thought was shared with the rest of the council. If not, I'll make sure that Katie or Condi sends it to the rest of the council. But I submitted a letter to the mayor and to the county executive and to the co-chairs of the Race Commission, asking for them to create a committee team, task force, members from that committee, whatever they want to call it, an accountability group that would prioritize the recommendations, put forth a schedule of implementation, and be accountable to informing the community and being transparent about the implementation of the recommendations. And so that letter went out last month, and I have not got any correspondence back, but I am hoping that they will put something together that will hold both entities accountable and will track the, like for instance, there were some things we that were put into the Executive 203, so there's some things that may have already been done through council or that may be in the works through on the policing side, through policy practices and procedures that may be in the works. And so who's tracking this stuff? Like how and who's reporting back to the community? So I think there should be an entity made up of individuals maybe who are already vested, who came out of the commission. I'm not saying of course, I don't want to be one of those individuals. I've spent enough time on that report. However, I do think that it's important and imperative, and I think the report speaks to having such an entity created by the mayor and the county executive to be accountable and to be able to track successes of implementation. So I hope that letter gets disseminated again to council and that folks would be supportive of such an entity.
Okay, thank you. And Redco, Councilmember Patterson, Lightfoot.
Sure. Standard busy month at Redco. We approved some loans. We're staffing up our committee structure. We're pulling that together. That was pretty much the main work that we're working on right now. Just getting up to speed and staffing up our various committees. So get some loans. We did a loan to So-In City, Velvet Belly, and Rock Brewing in the city, obviously. There's a change in our IRS status that we've been talking about for some while. We approved that. We adopted our procurement policy, and we created and staffed our executive committee, our governance committee, and audit committee, the Revitalization Rochester Fund, and the finance committee. So nice little month.
Is the Redco work online? I mean, is there something?
I was just getting ready to, that's what's going to be my input, Madam President. People should go and check out the Redco website. And Redco has spent a lot of time rebranding itself. So, it's really trying to really get it out in the community. I'm hearing and I've seen some of the individuals out in the community talking to the business owners, actually, doing more outreach and reaching out and really trying to get people aware of what Redco even is, because most people are not familiar with Redco and they really don't understand. So yes, Madam President, there is a website. It's been totally redone. It's very user-friendly. It's very nice. Again, I just want to, especially those who are listening or who will be listening to this call, Mike, I don't know, is it redco.com or org? I'm not sure the actual.
I will, yeah, you keep talking and I'll pull it up.
It's
Okay,
redcorock.com.
redcorock.com. So if you go to redcorock.com, or if you just Google Redco Rochester, I'm sure you'll get their website. And for those who are interested in business or have an existing business and want to grow their business and or expand their business, Redco should not be a well-kept secret, but it is. And it should be, and we as council members should be ambassadors to our constituents for helping to get out the word about Redco. They have money, they have dollars. One of the things that came out, we were talking about the race commission. One of the things that I was co-chaired the business development committee. One of the top priorities that came out of that was access to capital. So Redco is one of those resources that could provide access to capital. And so, yes, Madam President, it is online and they are getting out more in the community.
So remind me of how the connection with, I'm just going to say, you guys know Thad down in MBD. He's the one that helps the businesses with their loans and grants and all of that. So his work, how does that connect to Redco? Councilmember Patterson?
Like those guys are constantly talking to each other all the time. If memory serves me correctly, So in City, which is over in the East District, is a collaborative effort between the city and Redco. I think a couple of these that we are doing are collaborative deals between the city and Redco. So they are constantly talking amongst each other, sharing information back and forth. Dana Miller is the board chair for Redco, but he also works for NBD. So
Right.
Information is moving back and forth. And what I was trying not to go too far. So in City is a fabulous example of what we're looking to do. This is a city resident. She's got a business in the city. She's looking to expand. She's rehabbing a vacant building and moving her business there and growing here in the city of Rochester. That's what we're looking for. And she's a prime example of doing it. Actually, every example is, but I think that was just really cool that, here's an empty building that is being revitalized, reutilized, and is becoming productive again, and we're growing a business into it.
So for the interested citizen, who should we refer them to? Should we refer them to Redco or to MBD?
I don't think it's one or the other. I think you can send them either way because they're going to talk regardless.
Okay, thank you.
I think oftentimes, Madam President, I think because MBD is more out there and they're in the neighborhood service centers and et cetera, I think most people end up, and I agree with Councilman Patterson, which either way you go is they'll get to their destination. But I think most people are just familiar with working with MBD. And I think that oftentimes MBD becomes a referral mechanism for Redco. I think that's how traditionally it goes, but Redco is really trying to move into a standalone entity because of the lack of trust that people have these days in government, right? That's part of their lack of engaging, right? And why people won't even go to government to ask for help, right? And so because of that, I think Redco is really trying to just people to view them as this not this governmental entity, right? So that they don't have those preconceived barriers there.
Okay, and Redco is handling the expenditure of was it 10 million over 5 years, or what was that?
Yep.
Willie's on. Are we okay in terms of moving that along, getting that money spent?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We have a meeting coming up. Our next chairs meeting, I'll have a report. Our meeting last month got canceled. We have a meeting coming up this month. I think it was next week. And you're talking about the revitalization funds?
Yes.
Yes, and I'll have an update for you in writing next chairs meeting.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Okay, Councilmember Lupian, the Crisis Intervention Services Unit.
The update that I have is that, you may all know this by now, but that the People in Crisis team has scaled up to respond to all mental health call codes, whereas before they were only responding to 3. So now they are co-responding with police. They're able to be called by the police as well as the community, and they have seen a dramatic increase in the number of their calls. They went from, being underutilized to being over capacity for what they can respond to, and they've had clinicians pulling double duty. And so they're hiring and trying to staff up rapidly to meet the demand. And the report that I have heard from them is that they're finding themselves very useful in these situations and providing a big service to our community. Also that there are, kind of speaking to where our folks are right now in terms of struggling with COVID-19, a much higher volume of suicide calls and mental health calls than we would typically see. So I'm so glad that we have this team to really help people during this hard time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just would like to add a comment, Madam President, to that. Thank you, Councilman Lupian. I had a conversation with Commissioner Torres and Aaliyah, our crisis coordinator, and as Councilmember Lupian has said, they are really overwhelmed. And I think as we move into this budget cycle, we're going to have some real serious conversations about making sure that we provide their needs and what they need. And so I just wanted to put that on the table to make sure that we're all cognizant and understanding that, this is the wave that we moved in to do human services business. We've been doing it in the past, but not to this capacity. And we're really going to have to, we had a Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition meeting last week, and the numbers were shared, and they're just amazing at how many calls that they're responding to, 7 or 8 calls a day or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And so, but they just don't have, their staff is working 24/7. And so they're looking to increase their staff. We should be really supportive of whatever budgeting items come before us soon. And we should be looking to make sure that we provide them and Commissioner Torres and their staff with the proper resources that they're going to need to provide these services to our community.
Are they now budgeted for, is it 20? Is it up to 20?
I think it's 30. Is that right, VP? I think the number is 30.
I think you're correct. I'm not sure if they have actually 30 people working though. I know that they're trying to hire there's 4 teams so that they're operating out of. And so I'm not sure of the exact number, Madam President, but I know we have to look at, which teams are we actually referring to, because there are 4 teams that they're looking, that they have to staff.
I don't remember seeing, I saw a job announcement, I don't know, maybe about a month ago, but I haven't really seen anything since. Do you all? Okay,
I am on I'm on a committee for hiring a deputy commissioner that would be directly under Commissioner Torres. I was on that search committee. We finished up we had over 30 applicants. I think there were 12 to 15 that actually made it past the human resource cut, and then we interviewed all of them. The final interview was, I believe it was last Monday, and the commissioner should be coming forward with her recommendation soon. But I would say I've sat in on those interviews. Some very talented individuals presented, and it should be exciting to see who makes it in the final.
That's a deputy commissioner, right?
Yes.
What about the clinicians, the staff? Well, I only saw one posting, one ad on that, and that was, I don't know, about 2-3 months ago. How are we getting those positions filled?
Yeah, I'm not totally sure on that, Madam President. That's something we'd have to ask Commissioner Torres.
Because I know that for DHS, that's always an ongoing struggle. So I was wondering how we were making out getting applicants and filling our position. Okay,
That's a good question.
all right.
I'll get
Councilmember
back to you on-
Melendez. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Melendez.
Yes, Board of Health, we had a lot of discussion around mental health services as well, specifically the expansion of the FIT team. So I know that right now, I think they're expanding up to 28 people. As you can imagine, the largest portion of the meeting was focused on vaccine and the rollout. It's increasing significantly. Right now, we're on average of between 30 and 40,000 shots a week in Monroe County. So we're getting a significant amount of vaccine. That includes the Hawkeye site. Everything's been going well. Right now, we're looking at expanding to have more quadrant sites. So each quadrant of the city has additional locations. I believe there was an announcement around the quadrant pods that came last week. And just to highlight that, starting April 8th, there'll be additional sites, Baber AME, Memorial AME Zion, Greater Harvest Baptist Church, and then some additional rec centers. So the Jackson R Center, Edgerton R Center, and Ryan R Center will all have vaccine sites, which people will be able to register for and sign up for. That's really it. The next meeting will be on April 14th.
What was the west? What's in the southwest?
In the Southwest, we have Memorial AME Zion on Clarissa Street. And I'm looking here. There's one additional site that's to be determined, so I'm not sure if that's going to be Southwest or Northeast.
Okay, all right, thanks. And we've not had a Board of Ethics meeting in a bit. So I don't have anything else on my agenda. Are there any other items that we need to discuss?
I was just hoping that we might be able to look into some ethics training for all council members.
Somewhat?
Basic ethics training for all council members. That little time I was on the county ledge, Willie, I know you remember it. We did a little online ethics training. It wasn't anything massive. And they printed out a nice little certificate at the end. But I think it would be a good idea for us to all go through just some intro stuff.
All right, I'll get that scheduled. Definitely, okay. All right,
One thought.
yes,
Going back to, I think this was in PPW, the art, or maybe it was NBD, I don't remember. The art going on with the Black Box Theater. I'm interested to know kind of like, what is the art initiatives going on in the city, and wondering if that fits into a work session to kind of learn like how we're utilizing the arts, and especially with the smaller more local artists. Is that something that anybody else is interested as well?
Yeah, I would be interested in understanding that, and my understanding there's also some arts council that's being formed, looking at the 1% fund and other matters. I'd be interested in learning more about that.
so I think the way, because there was in terms of an arts council, I'm not sure that's what there was an actual arts council, and I don't think that one is around anymore, but the city, there was a group that started to meet, and the city had sort of structured and supported it. And it was actually artists. And it was mostly artists of color because that was one of the concerns. I'm gonna find out what happened to that and how we can sort of get that back on the table as far as give you an update and then find out what would be the best direction to find out where we're going with it and how we're going to address it. Because I haven't seen any activity around that, but I'll get that information and get back to you all on that.
That'd be great.
Okay? Is there anything else?
Yes, I have a question. Has anyone gotten any feedback or information about the ATVs, the legislation for that? Are we working on it? Are we doing anything?
Well, I on some level thought that the email that the Corporation Council sent out was addressing the fact that the reference had been to some legislation or activity, and was it Buffalo that didn't apply?
Buffalo and Albany, but they were putting it together. They're supposed to be voting on it this month, I believe.
No, I'll look at that.
Either way,
Okay.
I mean, either way, are we able to do anything regarding legislation for ATVs and dirt bikes that are taking over our city? And we don't really have to wait for that.
I'll look at it.
Thank you.
Is that it? Are we all done? Okay. I'd like to thank you all and wish you all a great week.